In the arid mountains in the south of Mexico, the 8,000 Nahua villagers of Tlamakasapa earn a meager living by weaving palm baskets, an ancient art form preserved over centuries. Faced with relentless hardship, frequent illness, and a toxic environment, women in Tlamakasapa are gradually transforming their lives. They're becoming stronger, more resilient, able to respond with greater creativity and assurance to life's demands. This story of a Mexican village is multi-layered, often convoluted, one that illustrates the present human condition. It is a story for us all as we struggle globally to regain social and ecological balance. According to local legend and historical accounts, Tlamakasapa was founded over 500 years ago when 3 families fled into the mountains to escape Christian missionaries and the invasion of Hernán Cortés and his men during the conquest of Mexico. They settled where they found water. These origins explain Tlamakasapa's name, a Nahuatl word meaning people of fear. Starting in the 1500s, men walked to the Tasco silver mines 15 kilometers away to sell goods like charcoal, firewood, and fodder, and to work in the mines. Since its settlement, Tlamakasapa's rough and dry terrain has allowed only marginal subsistence agriculture. Today, those families with land continue to plant corn, but harvest very little. For generations, palm weaving has been the main economy of Tlamakasapa, albeit one characterized by poverty. People gather the palm, which grows wild. A skilled weaver, working steadily, can make a large basket in 3 or 4 days. Men and boys sell their baskets for a few pesos on the streets throughout Mexico. Tlamakasapa slowly grew in size, forming 3 barrios or neighborhoods, San Juan, San Lucas, and Santiago, each with its own Catholic church. The first public dirt road was constructed relatively recently, in 1977, and the first primary school built in the early 1980s. Today, few people can speak their indigenous language fluently. The village history is remarkably similar to that of other indigenous peoples in the Americas. Long years of racial discrimination and marginalization by church and government authorities, with welfare and educational systems that reproduced inequality and passive dependency. The overall result was a rapid loss of language and cultural identity and a cascade of consequences, general feelings of humiliation and shame, fearfulness, violence, and vulnerability. Susan Smith, a Canadian, first visited Tlamakasapa with friends in the early 1990s. After years of working internationally, its poverty and isolation were immediately familiar and its acute needs compelling. Susan is executive director and founder of ATSIN, a non-governmental organization registered in Mexico and in Canada. ATSIN's approach to community development is people-centered. That is, it is a way of engaging with individuals and groups that builds their confidence and capacities while addressing priority problems. The ATSIN team has worked in Tlamakasapa for more than 20 years, garnering plenty of experience. But, as Susan tells us, the beginning was rather overwhelming.
When we first arrived in the village, the water shortages and acute poverty were obvious, but the question was where and how to start. On a slow walkabout, I invited women to come to a demonstration of ORS, Oral Rehydration Solution. This is a simple mixture of sugar, salt, and water that can save the life of a child suffering from severe dehydration. Women gathered and we mixed the solution and chatted, and one asked me, "Susan, can you teach us to treat worms in our children?" And I said, "Yes, but why do you want to know that?" And she explained, Last week, an 8-year-old girl suffocated to death because so many worms crawled up her throat. Everybody got scared and ran away, and she passed away. Taken aback, I gulped slightly, and we agreed to meet again the following week.
A bridge activity, like this ORS demonstration, allows the building of bridges or connections between people. Carefully chosen, a bridge activity provides opportunity for individuals, both outsiders and insiders, to meet, and for the newcomers to get to know the community. While offering useful information, Susan was actually waiting for a question from the women. The question came quickly and revealed emotion. That emotion became an energetic push, opening up the possibility of response from the team. Team members spent a lot of time in the community in order to understand its history and traditions, resources, relationships, and challenges. They needed insights into people's circumstances, beliefs, and daily pressures. This analysis of the context of Tlamakasapa guided the design of Atsin's programs.
One day, years ago, Atsin organized a cooking demonstration in Santiago, the largest neighborhood. I invited Salome, a weaver and a mother of 5, to come with me. Shortly after we headed out, Salome said to me, "Susan, you walk all over this village, and I've never been here before." Surprised, I turned and I looked at her. We were roughly 2 blocks from her house. Her world was so small, far smaller than I had ever imagined. And I asked myself if I was able to see the world through her eyes, at least at times. Even now, Salome's kitchen has next to nothing in it. With no food reserves, Salome lives with the daily pressure of feeding her family. If she doesn't weave a basket, there is nothing to sell in order to buy food.
Even seemingly simple and sensible advice, like boil your water, is substantial effort. Walk to get water and carry it home. Walk to gather firewood and carry it home. And then spend time boiling water and not weaving, and therefore not earning money. With families living on less than $1 a day per person, this is acute economic poverty. About 40% of families live in stick huts with tar paper roofs and little furniture or protection from the wind, rain, and cold. Others live in concrete block houses, most often overcrowded with a different family occupying each room. Twice a day, the poorest families eat tortillas with a thin soup of rice, onion, and tomato, or an egg, a spoonful of beans, or a piece of cheese, but many times with nothing but salt. More than half of the women are illiterate. Water is a constant worry. In the dry season, wells dry up. In the rainy season, these wells fill with dirty runoff of garbage and excrement. Villagers now must pay for water that is piped in. Alcoholism and drug use among men, macho attitudes, and domestic abuse have led to lives of desperation and despair for many families. Women speak of illness, exhaustion, their own ignorance, and sadness over the many deaths. There are 2 types of poverty. One is economic poverty, and the other, a poverty of spirit, that can be found among the rich and the poor. A poverty of spirit has outpourings of emotions like fear, resentment, and greed, and in the end leads to the death of dreams. People cannot imagine that tomorrow will be any different than today or yesterday. They possess little vision for their future, accepting a life marked by passivity, dependency, manipulation, and often an early death.
I was waiting for Maria, who was answering a government survey. The young man asking the questions finished, thanked her, and moved on to the next house. And I said in amazement, Maria, none of your answers were true, not even your name. And she laughed and said, right, nothing was true. But why should I answer his questions? Who is he anyway? I thought about that. When all that people own is their name, why would they give it away to every person asking for it? Her privacy is her defense. Trust is earned, I again realized, and especially in tough places. Trust takes time.
Personal connections that build trust take time, the right effort, and sincere intention. Establishing and maintaining trust with people is paramount.
I open my senses, my ears, eyes, touch, smell, taste, and I'm constantly absorbing information and sorting it out. I become my own research instrument. I learn to pay attention to the small details that say so much. The lift of an eyebrow, that quick look that passes between husband and wife, the sudden silence of an abused woman. Learning to look and really see requires me to stop talking, stop questioning long enough to notice. How does one learn to really see that anxious tremble, a nervous shifting of weight, a leap of faith, or a gathering of courage? The village was trapped in a tight web of deprivation with 5 main characteristics: poverty, malnutrition and illness, violence and insecurity, vulnerability, and powerlessness. When participants, both insiders and outsiders, understand this web and its consequences, they can design better programs, recognizing that there are no magic bullets, no quick and easy solutions. In oppressed settings like this one, no single intervention or technology will help, be it ecological stoves, vitamin A, vaccines, or the pouring of concrete floors. These are complex situations, and we must think and act in more comprehensive ways.
Starting in 1997, the Atsine team made hard-won progress under relentless, demanding circumstances. Trained promoters, all local women, gradually took over running the day-to-day programs. With persistent determination, they entered into cycles of action and reflection as a way to plan, collaborate, and build their skills. This process combined taking actions, the doing, with times of reflection, the thinking. The group continues to think, act, and learn. Atsine now has 4 main programs with many activities: health and healing, community education and nutrition, income generation for women, environment, water, and sanitation. These programs, developed in constant consultation with families and with careful listening and observation, responded to priority needs.
In October, a long line of people waited outside our center. Berta, a young mother of 4, entered rather hesitantly, cradling her 6-month-old baby Jose under her arm. She anxiously explained that he had constant diarrhea and weighed just 3 kilos, which was his weight at birth. Her husband gathered firewood, and there was no money to take Jose to a specialist as recommended by the village health center. I peeked under the shawl. Jose was a shock, barely there, just skin and bone, and his big eyes locked onto mine. In a matter of minutes, working as a team with Bertha, we started. Examine and treat his obvious stomach infection with a simple remedy. Mother the mother, praising her for continuing to breastfeed. Get a baseline weight, give Jose vitamins, and lower stress in Bertha's household with bags of rice and beans. On their next visit, his stomach infection gone, Bertha offered him rice cereal, and he wolfed it down and wanted more. Over the following days, she added cooked carrots, banana, avocado. 3 months later, he could sit up by himself and weighed 5.4 kilos. The crisis was over.
Sometimes the answer to an immediate serious problem is straightforward. Jose lived because his mother persisted in her search for help and never gave up, because Jose had a strong will to survive, and because the Atsine team responded quickly with effective and caring actions.
The truth is, In the midst of so much misery, even a small success is uplifting. Our collective spirit is nurtured and our commitment to loving action is renewed, strengthening our sense of grace and of hope. This is the gradual building of resilience and the creation of opportunity, the true north of development. When we struggle together to meet challenges, we add to our complexity as individuals, our abilities to care and be cared for, our sense of interconnectedness, and our capacity to rehumanize our world.
Learning can lead a way out of poverty and spark a dream. Guadalupe, one of 6 children in a struggling family, worked in Alcine's special needs program. Her kind and attentive manner led to an offer of a full scholarship. She was to be the first in her extended family to attend high school. Then tragedy struck.
Perdí a mi padre en la noche de mi graduación de la secundaria.
I lost my father on the night of my graduation from junior high school. This loss was painful, and I was undecided about my plan to continue my studies. My uncle said that because I was a woman, my studies were not going to be useful in any way. But I remembered my father's words. Carry on. If you want to study, then I will always agree. I decided to not be afraid of anyone, to trust myself, and to continue in school. Even though I had just lost my father, I learned that I still knew what to do.
Guadalupe graduated from high school with a specialty in early childhood education. She now coordinates Alcine's special needs program, putting her knowledge into immediate practice and giving back to her community. Celia, another promoter, describes her progress.
My life changed when I joined Alcine. My thinking changed. I'm different physically from other people, and before, when others made offending comments about my body, I felt bad. Before, I blamed myself for my condition. I blamed God and my mother. I've become stronger, and I've grown as a person. Others made me grow. Since I became involved with Alcine, I've felt important. I can do what others do. I have value, as do others. I can do good things for my community.
Whether learning by lived experience or by formal studies, individuals grow on different fronts at different times. But first, the taste of freedom, that actual experience of a new self, must be established. As the Latin American educator Paulo Freire taught us, this shakes up rigid mindsets and habits. Tight strands of distrust are slowly loosened, finally leading to a rupture and the emergence of a new dimension of self. People know that they know more, and they're stronger for it. Greater creativity and intuition, that inner guidance, that sixth sense, start to appear.
I weave palm into unique designs. My pieces sell well, but it wasn't always this way. For years, my family only wove small round baskets, and then embroidered 2 flowers on each one. We barely made a living, selling our baskets in large bundles to wholesale buyers who arrived in Tlama every few months. Then one day, weaving changed for me. Someone from Alcine asked me if I could weave a cow, but I had no idea how to do this and couldn't figure out how to start. That night, I dreamt of a little pig that described how to weave the cow. It was such a strange dream. I woke up encouraged and right away wove the cow's body. Looking back over the past years, I see that my creativity began at that moment. All my weavings arrived first in a dream. Chickens, elephants, rabbits, even a big fish. I realized that I must first desire to make something new, and then the dream pig pushes me. Do it like this, make it like that. Now I can weave anything, but for years I wove the same round basket over and over again.
When individuals and groups develop capacities and recognize their human rights, a sense of liberation grows, diminishing long-standing beliefs of unworthiness or powerlessness. People then are better able to master skills that enable good work, participate actively in decision-making, critically analyze situations, obtain sufficient resources, and develop enough inner power to risk action.
The experience of awakening is central to any transformation, any liberation. That is, we wake up and come into awareness, able to realize a possibility, an idea, a truth, a solution. We suddenly get it. As we awaken and grow in consciousness, we develop compassion and feel for the other, their joys and their anguish. Our egos subside, and we are able to see the world as the other sees it, feel as the other feels. We better understand the illiterate mother who cooks over a 3-wok fire while her children wait to eat, the silent women cloaked in dark shawls who keep vigil over a dying relative, the fiery youth who organize a protest, the teenager who cuts her arm with the blade from a pencil sharpener and feels such a relief. Our spirit expands and reaches out to the one in pain, and we gradually become bigger in spirit ourselves. Awakening, that coming into awareness, is at the heart of compassion. Compassion marks the individual who is spiritually rich, the truly educated person. The essential task is to nurture inner confidence so that difficult circumstances, problems, and experiences can be resolved and not carried as fear or hate or envy or any other negative emotion.
When on a path of awakening and personal growth, people gain strength and don't fear failure. As people heal and learn, fear falls and confidence rises. These empowering moments strengthen intention, creating new beliefs in the self and in others. Responding to priority needs, the Atzin team deliberately planned initiatives that would build up the confidence, creativity, and capacities of women and children, and at the same time investigated troubling observations of people looking unwell, beyond what could be attributed to malnutrition and parasites. Laboratory studies revealed arsenic and lead in the local water and soil. These are natural but harmful metals. Toxic metals were also found in the palm dyes and clay cooking pots.
Over 2 decades, we gradually pieced together a complicated puzzle of a toxic village situation. At the beginning, it was easy to see the poverty, but it took listening, digging for data, and asking more and more questions when our findings didn't fit our observations. This eventually led us to the environmental toxicity problems. We actually stumbled our way into truth. The combination of malnutrition and exposure to multiple metals, even at very low levels, constitutes a toxic synergy and produces a silent and slow poisoning.
At risk is the weaver who eats a basic diet of corn with little protein, vegetables, and fruit, weaves dyed palm, drinks and cooks with contaminated water, lives in a dirt floor hut, has no toilet, and cooks in a low fire blazed clay pot. At high risk are the pregnant women and young children. They are less able to expel toxins and instead absorb them. A toxic environment combined with a corn-based diet and the invasion of sugar and junk food have resulted in high rates of diabetes, obesity, hypertension, and weakened immune systems. When the COVID-19 pandemic struck in early 2020, people with these conditions were particularly vulnerable. Families in Tlamakasapa depend on street sales to tourists for income. When COVID-19 began, the tourists vanished, along with their livelihood. Household food reserves were quickly exhausted, while food for purchase rose in price. Illness then arrived like a viral storm.
Right now, I'm concerned that this problem will continue, that we cannot stop it. Here, there's no way to isolate people as in other places.
The viral storm was predictable in this setting marked by stark inequality, overcrowded households, malnutrition, pre-existing health conditions, and limited health services. Exposing the stark village conditions in a context of constant violence and insecurity in the state and in the country, COVID in Tlamakasapa quickly became a tragedy. Women promoters rapidly mounted a COVID campaign in the village, training and organizing for multiple actions. Community education, street by street, numerous times. 10 distributions of food and face masks to 800 families. And condolence visits to those with a death in the family.
Nosotras somos un grupo.
We are a group of 30 promoters making a huge effort. We have gone house to house to give information about the prevention of coronavirus, house by house. Many people here cannot read, but we explained the information step by step. It was tiring. It took time, but we did it. We gave food to families, but not to all families. We selected those that really need it.
The village COVID crisis and its many deaths pushed the promoters onto unfamiliar ground, forcing them to learn fast and to organize more effectively. When all those in positions of authority disappeared, the promoters carried on bravely as frontline workers, learning as the situation unfolded. Unexpectedly, while responding to the COVID crisis, the promoters gained considerable social goodwill, as well as substantial skills in organization, analysis, and reporting.
Necesitamos más gente preparada aquí en el pueblo.
We need more prepared people here in the village. We can do it ourselves. We can organize. We can break those barriers that say that women are not worth anything here. We want this to change. Then we would be better off. Yes, it's better for us. It's better for our family, for the whole village.
We concentrated in this one setting because of its sheer complexity and a growing recognition that Tlamakasapa is a microcosm of our world situation. It reflects our global reality. For the most part, 3 themes define village circumstances: a physical world of contamination and toxicity, a social world of insecurity, economic poverty, and violence, an emotional world that is dominated by fear, resentment, and hate, a poverty of spirit. These are our global challenges as well. For each of these themes, we have a desired vision: harmony with nature and a healthy environment, peaceful freedom with the fulfillment of basic needs, love, happiness, and courage within ourselves and with others. The creation of holistic movement towards that vision is the real work of development. In these times of overwhelming global strife, for those feeling the weight of the world on their shoulders, let us continue by taking a deep breath, gathering our courage, carefully assessing risk, and entering into an ongoing process of strategic action with thoughtful reflection.
People-centered community development, with all its contradictions, tensions, and opportunities, is a process of taking calculated actions in rhythm with deliberate thoughtfulness. Grounded in daily reality, it is the creation of opportunities that allow shimmers of possibility. The possibility to trust, to listen long and to be heard, to take enough time, to find the fortitude to speak, to accompany others, to risk action, to stretch beyond what is known.
True development work requires resolve, a persistent determination that tolerates the times of uncertainty and endures over the long haul. A commitment to loving actions awakens us to a rejuvenating belief in ourselves and to a sense of grace. We can imagine a new way of being and of relating, and we can resolve to make that hopeful image a reality.